Dogman, and why I quit hiking. Dear Scary Stories NYC. I once saw a dogman for maybe a full minute, possibly even longer. I was too shocked to move and too afraid to make a sound, and that's why I got to see him do several kinds of things that I don't know if anyone else has witnessed him doing. That's also why I was fairly seriously traumatized by what happened. I will keep my descriptions rated PG, but you should realize that I'm going to be talking about this event that completely changed the trajectory of my life. I am not the person I had planned on being because of this dogman encounter. When I was 22, I worked multiple jobs for half a year to save up money. Then I finally moved out of my parents' house and hit the road as a nomad. It was 1973, and I wanted to see America firsthand. I was a hippie or a post-hippie, but I was also fiercely patriotic. I literally loved sleeping on the ground in the forest, just knowing that it was the American forest, you know? And in those days, you didn't have to be right-wing to love this country, because this country represents freedom, and that was the ultimate thing to pursue in my 22-year-old mind. I mean, I loved the Founding Fathers. I thought they were the ultimate weed heads, you know? It was my goal to spend as much of my time off-trail as possible, living like a primitive in modern America. I didn't know how long it would be possible to keep it up, and so I set no time limit on myself, and really no rules either. Anytime I felt any need to stop into a town for a hot meal, or a night at a motel or whatever, I was allowing myself to go and do just that. But I never grew bored of being off trail. I was never tempted to go to a hotel. There were many times when I wondered how many humans had trodden where I was treading, as I squeezed my way through densely packed foliage and trees. To me at that time, even 5 months into my wanderings, every second of every day was a moment of discovery. When you're walking through woods all day and sleeping under the trees at night, you literally never know what's gonna happen next. As much as possible, I lived off the land by keeping my eyes open to edible plants, berries, and tubers around me. I was one of those Yule Gibbons types, although I hadn't heard of him yet when I set off on my journey. I didn't eat pine trees like Yule, but I did know how to recognize potato beans and pawpaws and so forth. Hiking through the woods, you can walk right past food all day long without realizing it. But I had my field guide with me, and to me, some days that summer, it felt like walking through a supermarket. A very warm supermarket with no shopping carts, but you get what I'm saying. Now, part of my hippie bliss was based around the facts that I knew botany, and I knew how to defend myself against bears, wildcats, and snakes. I had a good first aid kit that I kept up to date, and I had an awareness of the general direction of hospitals when I would check my map each morning. Those were the days before GPS, but I did have a compass, and I had a good sense of direction. I always knew where I was within a mile or two, or at least I remained convinced that I always knew. I was never more at home than I had been that summer. And then the dogman walked into my life. The Wisconsin dogman. And I haven't really ever felt at home any place on the face of the earth ever since that day. So on that momentous day, I saw a deer, and I thought it was just the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. It was like Bambi, a young adult. I don't remember if it was male or female, but I remember that it was lovely. It walked away from me, and I followed at a distance, keeping foliage between me and the creature so that I could enjoy watching it without getting it upset. Well, I wasn't the only one silently watching that deer on that late afternoon. From the opposite side of it sprang a dog, flying through the air. The largest dog I can remember ever seeing, but a dog nonetheless. And it landed on that deer, carrying both of them to the ground. Dispatching his victim with the speed and precision of a hired assassin, the big canine began consuming his meal. I had sort of tilted back against a tree in surprise at this, putting me in a precarious position that I wouldn't be able to wriggle out of without making a bit of noise and attracting attention to myself. I'm not sure I really could have moved anyway. The scene I had just witnessed was not something you see every day. It also removed any sense of me feeling at home in those woods. If even a deer, built out of defensive instincts and speed, didn't sense that dogman there until it was twisting his neck, then no human being could ever withstand a surprise ambush from a dogman. I realized I'd been kidding myself that I was at home in the woods. I was actually on enemy turf. I was in Dogman's home. People have told me that bears are just as likely to make a high-speed ambush on a human, possibly even more likely than the dogman. I don't think there are any officially recognized dogman kills, since it's not an officially recognized animal. We know for a fact, though, that bears kill humans every year. Still, those people didn't see what I saw. It happened so fast, the deer never even knew what was happening. If it had been a movie, you would have said it was too exaggerated, too sped up, and therefore impossible. If you had seen it with your eyes, I think you would agree with me that a bear is simply not in the same class of predator as the dogman. The dogman is something a lot scarier than any of the accepted carnivores of North America. The dogman is like something out of the age of dinosaurs. He's like a velociraptor with fur in a lot of ways. The one I saw was solo, but I've heard they sometimes hunt in packs, and I can't imagine any animal anywhere that could stand up to an entire pack of creatures like the dog-headed brown beast that I witnessed. It looked like a dog, like a wolf, and like a steroid freak bodybuilder, all mixed into the same form. It tore into its food with teeth longer than most of the forks and knives I've used in my lifetime. It was sickening to look at, but I was too frightened to get sick over it. From my right and the huge dogman's left came a gray wolf. It wasn't overly large, or didn't seem so relative to the big brown dogman anyhow. My half-functioning brain wondered why the beast was wandering so close to the dogman's kill. Possibly it was starving if it wanted to take the dogman on for that meat there. The wolf would have to have been out of his mind to intrude on that scene. It looked like the dogman was thinking the exact same thing as I was, as it lifted its head up out of its steaming meal and took off running toward that wolf. The smaller canine jumped to attention, yipped in a high-pitched way, then took off running. It did not run away, however. Instead, it started running in a circle around that dogman's kill, and the dogman raced around just after him. Dust flew as the two carnivores circled the carcass 2 more times, with the dogman growing closer to the shorter-legged wolf with each turn around. I began to feel a little more like normal, and I decided that if the dogman caught up and a fight began, that it might be wise to try to use that distraction to make a run for it, back away from the epicenter of all this. I saw the dogman reach out and grab onto part of that fleeing wolf, which caused the wolf to trip, and the dogman to fly over him. That was the point when I first noticed the long tail on the dogman, which was proof that it could not have been a bear. The two predators tumbled over each other, and I seized my chance, taking off running on my nervous, wobbly legs in the general direction of away. It was all uphill running, and at some point I needed to stop to catch my breath. I lodged myself on the uphill side of a stout tree and peeked out to see if the dogman had in fact succeeded in catching the smaller gray canine, and what he might have done to him if he had. Well, what I saw when I looked out was certainly not what I was expecting to see. There, in front of me, was that dogman, sitting near the remains of the deer, his legs spread wide, grooming his private parts. To the dogman's side and somewhat to the rear was the gray wolf, who appeared to be grooming the dogman's back for him. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, so I continued to catch my breath watching this suddenly peaceful scene. After some time, the wolf got up and began eating venison for dinner, while the dogman turned around and began grooming the wolf's back while he ate. I wasn't sure then if the original bit of chasing around was actually in any way an expression of hostility, but I feel fairly convinced these days that it was just the two of them playing and running around to express happiness that they had food and would live to see another day. In the moment, I was thinking that I had just witnessed two adversaries becoming friends, but now I think they had to have been friends and allies for some time already, before that day. I didn't initially respond to this by returning to civilization. I just ran away as far as I could go until it started to get too dark to travel. I set up my tent that night and I laid there silently, too frightened to sleep, listening to something walking around out in the darkness. In the morning I looked around for footprints, but I didn't notice any at all. That whole day I felt really creeped out, like I was being watched, and I decided to spend that night in a hotel I had seen back along a highway I had passed. In the morning, I had breakfast in the hotel and watched TV in my room. When they knocked on my door to inform me that it was checkout time, I went downstairs and paid in advance for one more day. I still wasn't ready to go back out into Dogman territory. By the next morning, I called my dad, and he told me that he had a job for me at his company if I was ready to come home. I hadn't been calling him planning on going back, but the idea of competing for survival against other humans didn't seem as horrible to me as it used to. It sure beat competing for survival against the Dogman and his wolf pack friends. So basically, that's my story of Dogman and why I quit hiking. I don't think she's kosher, vegan, or parv, but without CS, we'd surely starve. Please join us in thanking CS for making one of her amazing donations to us using our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. CS is one of our most important channel members and friends of the channel. She even lives in an area known for a certain kind of dog-headed mystery figure who shall remain nameless. CS has rescued us from the brink more times than I'd like to admit, and there isn't any way to thank her enough. Thanks, CS. You can also donate using our super thanks button under each of our YouTube videos, or by joining one of our clubs, which shall be explained further now by our international TV spokesmongrel, Henry Lee Dogman. Thanks, Biggie, and thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that when it cuts off after I think 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
back for more scary stories.